Baseball isn't just numbers, numbers, numbers.
This game is not being played on computers.
You don't do that with a bunch of statistical gimmicks.
You don't put a team together with a computer.
We're talking weighted runs created plus,
expected WOBA,
his sweet spot rate,
defensive runs above average,
average exit velocity,
barrel rate,
xFIP,
BABIP,
SIERA.
We are above replacement radio. And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I'm your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well today. We've had a full week of baseball, a full week to take everything in, to observe, to analyze, to do everything that we need to do. And we got a couple extensions, post-opening day extensions. I feel like there's been a lot more post-opening day extensions this year than in years past, and maybe we're not done because reportedly the Blue Jays are allegedly making progress with Vladdy Jr. But we do know that there was more than progress made between the Red Sox with Garrett Crochet and the Padres with Jackson Merrill this week.
Indeed. They were one of a couple. Had a decent amount of extensions, but we kind of want to just talk about Crochet and Merrill because those were probably the most significant in terms of player profiles and also what it meant. Like, Ketel Marte, he got extended, but
on top of his extension.
Yeah. In all, it added 2 years to his original deal, so it's nothing too crazy. But yeah, the big one, and it's not just because we're Red Sox fans. It's just because of it is big news in the baseball world, and there were question marks surrounding if there was going to be an extension with this player, and the big one is Garrett Crochet, because he was traded to the Red Sox with 2 years of control left. So there was a lot of pressure on the Red Sox to get going, especially considering the fact he was looking good in spring training, and it looked like that price was only going to go up the longer they waited. So they didn't wait too long, extended him prior to his start against the Orioles. What were your thoughts on this whole ordeal?
Yeah, this was obviously a very necessary move for the Red Sox. When you're trading, your previous 2 first-round picks plus 2 other potential major league caliber players in Wickelman Gonzalez and Chase Maidra to acquire a guy that with 2 years left before he hits free agency, you have to extend that guy, right? Like that's where we get a situation like the Juan Soto deal with the Padres, where you look at the guys that they traded, where it's Abrams and Gore are making big impacts for the Nationals. Wood is an up and comer. Susanna even looks very good. And you didn't get the deal done ultimately. So, that's the reversal of it, where, you put everything on the table, you make the risky move, and you back it for the foreseeable future. 6 years, 170 million. I believe there's an opt out after the 5th year. Also a clause where he gets an extra year if he misses 120 consecutive days with an injury, which it's an interesting clause. I don't know if I've ever seen something like that before, but it makes sense given that there is an injury risk here. Obviously, he's still only in his 2nd full year as a starter. This is a huge move for the Red Sox and one that they really needed to make.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, when we talked about the original trade, I think listening back, there was a little bit of I was kind of in between on whether this move and sacrificing the prospects was going to be better than signing, someone like Max Fried or Corbin Burns. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that, Crochet only had 2 years of control left. And I think my opinion would have shifted if was going to be an extension in place. And now that there is, that it makes the trade look much better. They didn't trade two of their first round draft picks in Braden Montgomery and Kyle Teal for a guy who's gonna be there for 2 years. Now it looks much better, and yeah, I really enjoy this for the Red Sox because also it's a move that I like where it's not based on what he has done, it's based on what he will do, and there's a good idea of what he will do based on what he did last year. He struck out over 35% of the batters he faced, had a strikeout minus walk rate of about 30%. That's the stuff that gets you extended after only having about 200 big league innings in your career.
Mhm.
Before I toss it back over to you, one thing I've found interesting is it's been kind of widely talked about in the media as like a gamble that the Red Sox are making. I would argue that signing someone like Fried or Burns is an even bigger gamble than signing someone like Crochet. With Crochet, you're signing him from ages 27 to 33. For all players, that is the best perform. That's the best time you're going to be performing for your career for the most part. And he's already had a Tommy John surgery recently. There's no, he doesn't have to get his elbow reconstructed anytime soon, as we know it. Max Fried and Corbin Burns, they haven't had that, and they have more definitely higher mileage than Garrett Crochet. And looking at those guys like Max Fried and Corbin Burns, see where they were at before their age 26 season. Um, Max Fried had uh, Max Fried had only thrown 225 innings up to that point. Corbin Burns, up to his age 26 season, had thrown 146 innings, but and then each of them went on to have great runs after that, like a great 4 or 5 years after that. Um, because they're very good pitchers. So if the Braves or Brewers decided to extend them, it would be based on what they would have done, and what they ended up doing was really good. So with the Red Sox, they're signing based on what this guy will do, and I think especially with pitchers, you can't rely on history of health quite as much, because we know that pin can drop really at any point.
Well, I think where the gamble comes for Crochet, it's not only are you paying him $170 million, but on top of that, you're also a pretty significant prospect haul to even get the chance to do that extension where, you don't have to do that for Max Fried. You don't have to do that for Corbin Burns. And it is more money, but not too much more. Obviously, the major difference is the age, the whole idea of paying them for what they have done versus what they will do. I think that's kind of where the gamble on Crochet sort of lines up more evenly with the Burns and the Fried ones. But ultimately, like I am a Red Sox fan, but if I'm the Red Sox, I would rather sign Garrett Crochet to this deal right now, uh, and hypothetically have it not work out. Maybe he gets injured, maybe he just doesn't perform up to expectations, whatever. I would rather have that happen than not get the deal done, have him become, the pitcher that we hope that he will become, and either have to extend him for significantly more money or have him walk in free agency. I would much rather this scenario where they pay him, this kind of money and it doesn't work out. Because right now, I think for what you're hoping to get out of Garrett Crochet, it's very, very possible that this deal is a bargain for the Red Sox. I think I would even call it likely at this point because, I mean, we saw what he did in his first outing post extension, 8 shutout innings against a very good Baltimore lineup that, albeit didn't have Gunnar Henderson, but still is one of the better lineups that you'll face in the majors, whether he's there or not. Um, so yeah, I mean, this makes a lot of sense. I think this is the best way that they could have gone about it. And there was, definitely a lot in the air after opening day that it didn't get done. And I feel like every time he had a good start, like the only thing that was going to be on people's minds was, okay, the dollar value just went up, and we don't have to worry about that now.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And yeah, I would totally agree that the gamble is the prospects plus the price of this contract.
Mhm.
I think I've just heard people refer to the contract itself being a gamble, and I don't know. It's hard to agree with that.
It is to a certain degree. I mean, I think any pitcher contract above 100 million is a gamble, but not to the extent of the other two. You're absolutely right on that.
Yeah, and I had a stat the other day or earlier this week, and it was kind of just to provide reference on why this deal was signed. Garrett Crochet has the highest strikeout minus walk rate in a season by a pitcher age 25 or younger minimum 140 innings pitched, highest in baseball history, and with 140 innings pitched for a pitcher age 25 or younger, which is just to say that you don't see that type of dominance from someone that young very often, if at all. And I know the game has changed in those, in the general strikeout minus walk rate numbers, increase over time. But still, it's not it's he's done better than some of the recent pitchers. He ranked above Spencer Strider, who like was a consensus top five pitcher in baseball heading into 2024. That's what all the lists had him as. So yeah, we know that we know the potential of Garrett Crochet, and that's why he's getting paid. That's certainly why he's getting paid that money.
Yeah, absolutely. That is 100% why he's getting paid that money. Not only is this just like locking up, a big piece of your future, I think this also just represents a lot in the grand scheme of things for the Red Sox. There's obviously been, for a few years, fans have been frustrated at the lack of urgency, I guess you'd call it, from the front office, whether it be just, not a lot of big free agents, not a lot of big trades, not a lot of moves that really show that they are in a win now mode. And, it seemed like a weird like retool for a few years where they were kind of just doing a bunch of 1 and 2 year deals. But trading for Garrett Crochet and signing him long term is we want to win now and in the future move. And they're obviously in a position right now where a competitive window is opening up this year. They're 6-4 to start the season. They dropped 18 tonight on Sunday Night Baseball. Like whether they win this year or not, the intention is to go to the playoffs and really to win the World Series. And to make a move like that, to also extend Christian Campbell on top of that, like this is, on top of already signing Alex Bregman in the offseason, like it is a greater like sign just in general that like the Red Sox are back to being a serious franchise, which was, how many times did you hear from, a major name in the industry, a major writer being like, I've talked to these people in the industry, they have no idea what's going on and why the Red Sox suddenly decided to be like this. Those days are over, and this is, kind of, I think, the face of the moves that really show that.
Yeah, totally, totally. And kind of starts and ends with the owner, and it seems like John Henry is opening back up his pockets. I think I saw a report that, they're over the luxury tax again. So that's no longer a worry, which is wonderful. That's always what you want to hear as a fan. So yeah, it was just kind of we knew something was different once Alex Bregman got signed. And actually, going back to our conversation over the offseason when this trade happened, I guess one of the reasons why I wasn't knocking down the Garrett Crochet trade, I wasn't knocking down the door to have that happen, was because I thought it could bail out John Henry from having to spend big money. Like they would have gotten a big pitcher, but they just let him pitch out his 2 years of control, he wouldn't have cost that much. But now signing that contract, we know that John Henry, we're not letting John Henry off the hook. He is going to spend his money. He's spending his money on an ace, which is what we've wanted as Red Sox fans for countless years, like 4 or 5 years maybe up to this point. We've wanted like an ace pitcher, some top of the rotation guy that wasn't from our own organization, and yeah, I think why I was maybe more pro trying to get, Fried, Burns, Snell, Flaherty, some sort of thing was it would not let John Henry off the hook of having to spend. But not only did they acquire Crochet, but they opened up the wallets. They extended him and decided to keep him around at a high price, but for 6 more years after this.
Another thing that I haven't really heard a lot about that I think is another important aspect of why this is such a good deal to do right now is I think Red Sox fans should be very grateful to not have to go through a Garrett Crochet pursuit in free agency, not just because the dollar value is going to be a lot higher than it was now, but you also have to remember that he was a free agent in 2 years, and in 2 years, CBA expires and there might be another lockout. And if you remember 2021 to 22, there were a lot of hectic, crazy deals being done right before the lockout. And, there was some money being thrown at players that was perceived as an overpay. There was a lot of competitiveness and all of that, and it all happened very quickly. That's what was going to happen with Garrett Crochet. His market was going to go really up really fast, and there was probably going to be a lot of players in it. And that's what the Red Sox were going to have to compete in if they didn't get this deal done. And now that I have it done, they don't even have to think about that once. That was going to be something that lingered for 2 years.
Yeah, yeah, that's a very good point you bring up. Yeah, free agency was definitely abnormal from in that 2021 to 22 off season. Yeah, I remember like in the days leading up, you just couldn't keep track of all the deals that were happening.
Mhm.
Like I think Matt Chapman got traded and it just totally like slipped my mind and I didn't
Mm.
realize it again until like April of that year. Like things like that would just occur. And like in a situation like that, a pitcher like Garrett Crochet wouldn't really have a whole lot of time to weigh all of his options and wait for the Red Sox to make an offer, a bigger offer on that because maybe the Red Sox are trying to sign two other guys. Um, so yeah, that is a very good point you bring up because yeah, the 2026 to 27 free agents might be in a tough situation.
Yeah, I wonder who is a part of that class.
Yeah, luckily no longer Crochet. Um,
Obviously, a lot can change between now and then if other people decide to get extended.
yeah, exactly.
I don't think. Okay, I don't think Trade Rumors has that yet.
Dang. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think who else has like just 2 years of control
Okay,
left.
MLB wrote an article on March 31st saying here's how okay, so it's after 2026. Some notable names at this point include um Ozzy Albies, possibly, because that's when Alex Bregman has an opt out. Oh, Anthony Rendon's a free agent again. Nice. Ronald Acuna Jr. has a club option that's going to be
Yeah.
taken. I can assure you. Eric Skubal, Corbin Burns with an opt out. Chris Sale, Kevin Gosman, Freddie Peralta, Sandy Alcantara with a club option. Michael King. Actually, wait. I think Michael King's a free agent after this year, but it says after 2026. That's interesting. Several others. Luis Robert Jr. with the club option that'll probably be taken. Adolis Garcia, Jazz Chisholm, Ian Happ. There's a decent amount.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, not luckily not the craziest class, at least quite
No,
yet.
no,
Obviously,
no. There's definitely you don't have at this point you don't have like the big one unless yeah, I mean Acuna would be the big one, but I just can't see a scenario where he has a big free agency after the club option is declined.
right, right. Well, yeah, there's always going to be one pitcher that just decides to be a Cy Young finalist that
Yeah,
year
right, right,
who
right.
happens to be a free agent.
Yeah, get ready for 2026 Jesus Luzardo.
Yeah, 100%. That's exactly what's going to happen. Um, but uh, but yeah, anything more on the Crochet deal?
No, I think that's it. This is a very good deal for the Red Sox. And yeah, like I said, even if it doesn't work out, I still would rather that scenario than the one where uh they don't sign this extension and either have to pay him a lot more or let him walk.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah, I would agree that it kind of serves as full confirmation that the Red Sox are the Red Sox are bought in as an organization from ownership down to improve the team and improve the team long term because even with Bregman, something Red Sox stats noted is like okay, we got Crochet and Bregman over the offseason, uh, but the max control for each but the control for each of them only goes 2 years because Bregman has all opt-outs and Crochet only has 2 years of control. So like did we really improve our team long term with this Crochet deal? That becomes true. That's a long term improvement that the Red Sox made in started in the offseason and was finished just this past week. But yeah, the another major player, that was extended. Jackson Merrill gets 9 years, 135 million. I believe that buys out 4 years of free agency for him. And yeah, good to see the Padres making a deal like this. What did you think about this extension?
This is such a huge deal for the Padres because of obviously the situation they're in. They're in a very bizarre ownership uh, entanglement, I guess, where there's infighting within the Seidler family about the ownership of the team. There's all that stuff happening. And I think that there was a lot of financial uncertainty with the team. Like Peter Seidler passed away, after despite being in a small market, paying top dollar for a lot of players and making the Padres the best team that he possibly could. And obviously, not every owner is like that. In fact, very few to basically no small market owners like that, have the dedication and the willingness that Peter Seidler had. And there was a lot of uncertainty with how they were going to proceed, if they were going to be able to sign anyone else to big deals, but to keep someone like Merrill around is, I think, going to be a really important part of, point of stability during these 9 years when who knows what is happening from now until then.
Um, yeah, it is good assurance because yeah, since the unfortunate passing of Peter Seidler, there have been some moves that have, I guess, dialed back the team, or maybe some inaction that maybe wouldn't have taken place if Peter Seidler was still here with us because yeah, I mean, over the offseason heading into 2024, they traded Juan Soto, which was the ultimate white flag, but there was already questions about if they were going to try to extend him, and ultimately they didn't, and they ended up trading him. And then over this past offseason, their biggest addition was Nick Pivetta, which, all due respect to Nick Pivetta, but that's not the big splashes that we were getting used to the Padres making. But yeah, this one is really nice for them, and it seems like a really solid deal for them. Actually, when I looked up Jackson Merrill contract, the first report that came up in the news section of Google, there's a Sports Illustrated article headlined "Rival Executive quote unquote shocked at Jackson Merrill's inexpensive contract with the Padres." And honestly, looking at it, and it's not just a thing of like the obvious, it's buying out his pre-arb and arbitration years, but in what's bought out in free agency, or what I believe it is, it looks like he's making 21 million a year in those years,
Yeah.
which, considering the fact that he was, I think, top 10 in MVP last year, and also that money is going to be paid to him, 4 or 5 years from now. Yeah, that looks like it could be pretty good for the Padres, and somewhat of a steal. Also, like Corbin Carroll got 8 years, 111 before having a full year of service time in there. So the fact that those two are comparable, it is pretty wild, but good for the Padres of kind of snagging this one out.
Um, I think the big thing about this deal is that it's not just 165 million over 9 years, but it can max, or what is it, 135 mil, but
Yeah.
but there's a bunch of incentives in it where it can max out to 204 million, with a $30 million club option for, a 10th season. Uh, this this should be the blueprint, and I don't really understand how this is only the second time that I've seen a deal like this happen. The Mariners signed Julio Rodriguez to essentially this deal midway through his rookie season, where like he could make 210 million, he could make 400 million, and it's all dependent on, his MVP finishes, like his performance, his health, all of that. Like, and the Jackson Merrill contract is a very similar thing. It could be 135 million, it could be 204 million. I think this is a pretty clear blueprint on how to go about signing like your young, controllable, like star players, like upper echelon, tier star players. Like, I think this should be the Orioles blueprint for Gunnar Henderson. It should be the Reds blueprint for Ellie De La Cruz, the Pirates for Paul Skeens, maybe even like the Red Sox for Roman Anthony, maybe even the Tigers for like Riley Green or something. Like, there should be more teams taking note of this, where you sign a player to an extension that will benefit the team, but also will benefit the player and get it up to market value if they do the things that they expect that they're going to do. It's a bet on yourself, but also financial stability very early in your career. And I think I'm very shocked that this is only the second time that we've seen this happen in the last like decade or so.
Yeah, for sure. Because yeah, the main worry that you have about extending, signing someone, locking someone down for a contract for almost a decade is, are they going to be the same guy, um, the whole 9 years? And with having some incentive laden prospects in there, it definitely adds it obviously adds, not to use the term, but it adds incentive to the player to perform to that level and not, rest on his laurels. Not that players necessarily do that all the time. But yeah, and it could also, work out in making the deal make even more sense in terms of overall value. Because right now it doesn't look crazy high, but it could end up being there if he performs like we expect him to perform.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, I mean, 9 years and 135 million. Obviously, it's very affordable. I also like you mentioned the pre-arb stuff, and you're not wrong. There are still far too many people on the internet that just don't understand pre-arb contracts, and it annoys me. Like I saw, and this is more pertaining to the reaction of the Christian Campbell extension than it is to the Merrill extension. But like, how many times do we have to how many times do we have to explain this?
Right. Yeah, I don't get it. Like, pretty much
Like,
like maybe the second or third time I saw one of those contracts where it like the value didn't quite line up. I was like, okay, what is this? Why is it? And I looked into it, and people people like to react before far too much in this world. This goes even beyond sports. Far too many
yeah.
times in this world do people react before like actually looking into it and seeing
Oh,
why.
really?
Yeah, it's
I can't tell you I've seen anything like that.
yeah, no,
No.
it's actually quite it's quite a trend in the
You're telling
world.
me that like when there's perhaps some sort of controversy in the league where the FBI literally looks into a certain case and finds a certain individual largely involved with the greater MLB product to be not involved in said controversy, that the FBI must just be lying. Like that's the thing that people say.
Yeah, people
Hmm,
might react that way.
no way.
People might also think that new torpedo bats are being used by one single team.
Yeah, yeah. People must also think that launch angle is the reason why strikeouts are up by like 10% over the last like decade.
Right, yeah, exactly. Those sorts of things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's what we're talking about. But yeah, like yeah, it's very frustrating to see like, wow, we got Christian Campbell for less than the Mike Lee contract that happened with the Mariners. That's insane. Look at Craig Breslow. He's pulling all the strings. This is insane. I can't believe it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's frustrating, but we can't correct everybody on their behavior, unfortunately.
No. No, we cannot.
Um, did you have anything more on the Jackson Merrill contract?
No, I don't think so. It's obviously, there's nothing to not like about it for the Padres, and I think it's good to have that, that level of comfort if you're a Padres fan, if you're worried about the future of the team with the new ownership. Obviously, you have a lot of guys locked up for a while, Machado, Bogarts, Tatis, uh, now Merrill. And yeah, like it's good to at least have that while the ownership thing kind of figures itself out. You don't have to worry about like everyone leaving at the same time. Like I don't think there's going to be any of these major guys getting traded at any point soon.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah, and it's an obvious narrative, but the fact that you have two awesome outfielders who are currently in their early or mid 20s and you have them till the mid 2030s,
Yeah.
that is wonderful. It's just the fact that you have Maryland and Tatis locked up. Arguably, yeah, yeah, probably they're two best players. I think we both had them ranked.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, we both had them ranked as the two best Padres players. Um, so yeah, that's awesome for them, and yeah, I would agree. It definitely provides some reassurance, post Seidler era. Um, so yeah, before we get into players to highlight, been a couple teams. One team has been greatly underperforming, the other greatly overperforming, and we'll start talking about the Braves, who sit at 1-8. They didn't play today, didn't wrap up their series against the Marlins. So that ended up being a split. And yeah, they lost 4 to the Padres, 3 to the Dodgers, which is, I guess, natural, but they are 1-8 right now. What do you think about what's going on with the Braves?
Yeah, not only are they 1-8, but they've lost some brutal games. Yeah, a lot of especially early in the season against the Padres, against the Dodgers, there was a lot of not hitting with runners in scoring position. There was a lot of that going on, and that was obviously pretty frustrating to watch. That last Dodgers game, the one where Shohei hit the walk-off home run, that was quite unfortunate because Raisel Iglesias was just not getting any chance to pitch the entire season, and he finally got in. And the pitch he threw to Otani that he hit a home run like wasn't even a strike, which is kind
Right.
of kind of a good summary of it because the Braves have been quite unlucky. They have a 99-point difference between their slugging and X slugging, 297 to 396. That is the unluckiest difference in the league. They also have a 46-point difference between their WOBA and expected WOBA. On the unlucky side, they are tied for the fourth unluckiest team in that department.
Yeah, yeah, and that lack of luck has led to some pretty bad results. As it or at least heading into Sunday, they had the third lowest OPS and third lowest amount of runs in baseball. So obviously, lack of luck is going to translate to some poor results, and that's exactly what's happening. Just some individual numbers. I don't have the like expected numbers lined up, so some of these guys could be getting unlucky, but. Jared Kelnick's hitting 154 with a 423 OPS. Um, Jerkson Profar got suspended, but he had a 450 OPS before he ended up getting suspended. Austin Riley has a 468 OPS. Ozzy Albies at 542. Um, and yeah, like Matt Olson and or
Drake Baldwin's the big one.
yeah, well Drake Baldwin he's been getting uh
Screwed.
abhorrently
Yeah.
abhorrently unlucky. And part of it, I think he's hit some deep balls straight away, but still, it should not be that bad.
Yeah, no, it's brutal. The rookie catcher, yeah, a 192 slugging with a 533 expected slugging.
It's it is insane.
Yeah.
Welcome to the big leagues, I guess.
Yeah,
Drake
81st
Baldwin.
percentile expected slug. And yes, granted, 52.6% of his, or excuse me, 52.4% of his batted balls have gone straight away. That's kind of the main creator of bad luck, but still. I mean, a 61% hard hit rate, 75 mile per hour average bat speed. Uh yeah, he's gonna be all right.
Yeah,
As are many other players on the team. Matt Olson has been criminally unlucky as well. Those are like the two big ones.
yeah. Matt Olson has been unlucky, but uh, still like getting good results. And like he has a OPS over 800, but he's still like pretty unlucky, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so that those have been some of the factors. The pitching I think has looked fine, or at least the numbers say so. And yeah, they're getting some reinforcement soon with Spencer Strider. Acuna will come back in I guess maybe a little over a month. That timeline has kept unfortunately changing. Specifically, unfortunately for me because I picked him in F4 thinking that the timeline would be a little shorter, but he's Acuna's supposed to come back in like mid to late May now, I think, or at least that's what I last saw. Um, but uh, but yeah, the Braves, yeah, definitely have run into some bad luck. They've lost
Also, the
close
Jerks and Profar
games.
suspension is tough as well for them.
Yeah, the Profar, yeah, specifically Profar is
Forgot to
is
mention
rough.
that. That's brutal because that's 80 games plus the postseason.
True. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
forgot
the
about that.
your big offseason edition will not be playing postseason baseball. If
Yeah,
no team has ever lost each of its first 7 games and then gone to the postseason, but I think the Braves could end that drought.
it's also just pretty bad timing because if you were to pick a time to have one of your outfielders get suspended for 80 games, it would not be while your best outfielder is out with an injury,
Yep.
with Ronald Acuna Jr. still being out. So that obviously leaves some unfortunate holes in that lineup. It's probably made Jared Kelnick take some more plate appearances than they want him to. And yeah, I haven't not that I've looked too closely into the lineup here, but yeah, like does Brian De La Cruz play outfield? I forget.
Yes, he does. He plays left.
Yeah, so he's had 20 plate appearances this
Which, like,
year.
if you're a team for the playoffs, I don't think you want to have Brian De La Cruz in your outfield for 80 games.
Yeah, exactly. And he current as it stands right now, he's slugging 167 and has a 417 OPS.
Yeah.
With a 300 BABIP, by the way. So that doesn't seem to
That means
be,
he's striking out a lot.
yeah, that seems to be bad. Yeah, 40% strikeout rate
Yeah,
as well.
not good.
So yeah, so that's really unfortunate timing for the Braves, especially considering the fact that Profar, if I recall correct, was their biggest addition of the offseason. So that is also a bit of a bump in the road that they have to endure. Um, but yeah, they won their first game against Miami. Unfortunate that they couldn't get another game in against Miami because that would just be
Yeah,
nice
that would
to,
have been much needed at this time.
yeah, little slump breaker.
What do they
Um,
play next? Do they play tomorrow at all? No, they do not. I don't think
they
so,
do
unless they play on the
not.
West Coast. They don't. On April 8th, they play the Phillies. Oh, great. The team that just beat the Dodgers in a series.
You're right, right, right. Yeah,
They get to face, oh, dude, Zach Wheeler versus Sale on Tuesday. That's going to be a fun one.
that's pretty epic for sure. Um, love to see that. But yeah, so the Braves have run into some bad luck, hoping they can turn it around. Anything more on the Braves?
No, I think that's really it. Shout out to Spencer Schwellenbach. He's been holding the fort down in that rotation. I believe 10 scoreless innings so far this year.
Yeah, and yeah, I saw I struck out 10 against Miami, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
10
He has a zero
strikeouts, no
ERA.
walk.
He's pitched 14 innings, 14 strikeouts, one walk, no home runs, point 0.6 F4, 60% ground ball rate according to Fangraphs. Yeah, it's a small sample size, obviously, but he's been possibly the best pitcher in baseball over the two games that he started. Take that
Um,
with a huge grain of salt because it is two starts, but someone's got to hold that title, right?
indeed, indeed. That's what this is for. We have to identify who's the best right now.
How
Um,
many qualifying pitchers of a zero ERA? Quite a bit. Are we not? Oh, that's speaking of how many qualifying pitchers have a zero ERA? It's Matthew Boyd, Antonio Senzatella, and Spencer Schwellenbach. Senzatella has 2.79 strikeouts per nine.
oh yeah, MLB actually put out a a tweet that his whip is like over two. It's just he has
He's a
just man
463 BABIP against.
he has just managed to get out of jam after jam after jam.
How does he have a 95.2% left on base rate and a zero ERA? Is there something I'm missing? Oh,
Honor,
it must be unearned. Yeah, you're right.
yeah.
Great call.
Um, with the bases occupied, 15 played. Oh wow, that's weird. They're hitting 231 against him with runners in scoring position. That's almost average.
That's got to be just singles that move a guy over to third,
Yeah, I guess. It's
or just stuff that results in unearned runs.
yeah, they're slugging 308 with yeah, with with nobody on, hitters have a 476 on base percentage against him. So,
Nice. The
um
classic zero ERA with a 475 xFIP,
yeah, I that
which
that
is yeah,
that makes a good deal of sense. But yeah,
one
shout
hundo
out to
eight.
Senzatella.
Yeah.
He's given up 19 hits this year in 9 2/3 innings, but
Mm-hmm.
no earned runs. Good for him. Um, but yeah, while the Braves have been definitely underperforming, the San Francisco Giants have been overperforming. They currently stand now at 8-1, which is definitely a bit of a surprise. What have you thought about what they've been doing?
They've been fun. I mean, it was a good series this weekend against the Mariners. Like there was the walk-off, the Willy Adames game on, I believe, Friday. That one was very back and forth. They won again on Saturday, and then they won again today in another close game, if I recall. Um, yeah, it's been a fun team to watch. Jung Hoo Lee has been kind of exactly the guy that we've been hoping to watch. He has a batting average over 360, I believe.
Um, yeah, wait, which player?
Jung-Hoo Lee.
Oh yeah, yeah,
He's
yeah.
yeah, he's slashing 344, 400, 531 for a 931 OPS. And on top of that, a 16% strikeout rate, 14% whiff rate, 20% chase rate. Yeah, he's been awesome. It's fun. I'm
Right.
glad we finally get to actually watch him this year.
Yeah, it's pretty nice. And yeah, as pitchers, they have a 2.79 or they had a 2.79 ERA heading into today, which ranked fourth in all of baseball, and it probably increased today, but not by a whole lot because they gave up 4 runs as a whole. Um, but yeah, no, that they've definitely come through in the clutch, it seems. Won some close games and what have you. Um, I'm trying to see if they've gotten um particularly lucky. Yeah, they've definitely gotten lucky on the pitching side, naturally with
Yeah.
having a 2.71 ERA and three, I think, or 2.7 it might have been, yeah, 2.71 ERA and three
Hmm.
3.79 FIP. Seventh luckiest difference in WOBA and expected WOBA of all teams. But so yeah, obviously with an 8-1 start, some things definitely have to go your way. That's definitely happening with San Francisco. But yeah, as a team that's kind of an underdog this year and not on a whole lot of people's radars, getting off to an 8-1 start um, certainly gives the team an advantage considering if they do make a playoff spot, I imagine they're gonna have to scratch and claw for it.
Yeah, 100%. They have played some pretty decent teams in this season. They played the Reds when they were scoring runs. Important distinction there.
Mhm.
They went into Houston and swept the Astros, and then they swept the Mariners at home this weekend. Willie Adames hit a walk-off in his first game at Oracle as a Giant. That was a cool moment
Yeah, yeah,
because he got off to a slow start.
right, right. Yeah, yeah, it's been a fun team. They've been playing some good games. But yeah, at this point in the year, 9 games, it's still a thing of like we'll see what happens. So, um, but yeah, I think I was I guess a little bit optimistic about this team heading into the year. I had them above the Padres, and still the Padres are kind of going toe to
You're
toe with
looking pretty
them.
vindicated right now, and it is early, but hey,
Yeah,
anytime you look right, you got to enjoy that because it's 162 games and this everyone ebbs and flows, so you got to enjoy the highs while you have them.
indeed, indeed. So yeah, I'll yeah, it's a
Like
brief
how much?
victory
I mean,
lap.
like I'm loving this Kyle Tucker run right now as the guy that was higher on him than anyone else.
Yeah, right, right, right. Yeah, he's been going crazy. Um, but yeah, did you have anything more on the Giants?
No, that was all I had.
All right, we will now get into players to highlight. Talking and yeah, we'll start off with the lows so we end with the highs. So we will get into our Sunday April 6, 2025 edition of Slightly Alarming Statistics. He's been barreling up the ball way less.
He's not missing bats. He's not getting the ball on the ground, and people are hitting it in the air more.
It's been so bad. He is getting a
Slightly alarming.
Yeah, so my slightly alarming did not play today, which is convenient because that means all of these stats still stand. He was in both of our top 50s. Uh, he's a guy that I was a bit low on in 2024, and he proved me wrong. So I joined everyone else, and now he's been struggling. Talking about William Contreras from the Milwaukee Brewers, it's been a rough start to the season for him, both with the results he's getting and then also under the surface as well. In 38 plate appearances this year, he is slashing 097, 263, 097 for a 360 OPS. Is still getting a lot of walks, which is very good, but the stuff that he's most known for has not been there. He has a 13 weighted runs created plus, which is obviously very low. He among the 189 qualifiers, he ranks third lowest in batting average, third lowest in slugging, and sixth lowest in OPS. But more importantly, it's the under the hood stuff, and this will probably come back. But It's never good to see a guy have an exit velocity go from 92.8 miles per hour last year to 81.3 miles per hour this year. That's the second steepest decrease between the 2 years among all qualifiers. His hard hit rate has also gone from 49.5% to 18.2%. That's a 31.3% decrease, which is like close to the average hard hit rate, which is not good. And that is also the second steepest decrease. And then also, the reason I was never William Contreras before this year is because I was very concerned about the ground ball rate. Because it was usually north of 50%, but this year so far it is 72.7%. Obviously, it's not going to stay that high, but when you're not hitting the ball hard and you're hitting it on the ground 72% of the time, it's not any surprise that you're going to see a slugging percentage below 100. And that ground ball rate is the second highest among the 179 qualifiers. Additionally, he has a 4.5% fly ball rate. 4.5% fly ball rate. One fly ball in 22 batted balls. The third lowest on the same list. One of the reasons I was so high on William Contreras this year was even if he hits a lot of ground balls, when he doesn't hit it on the ground, he had one of the highest average exit velocities last year on fly balls and line drives. And that meant, as when he wasn't hitting it on the ground, he was one of the best, air hitters in the league. That got him to where he was last year offensively. And he's just not hitting it in the air enough. It really is hitting it in the air. Fewer than only two other hitters that qualify so far this year. And lastly, Contreras' average bat speed has gone from 74.2 miles per hour to 72.2 miles per hour. That's a 2.5 mile per hour decrease, which is tied for the fourth steepest decrease. And, that can be partially to blame for the low exit velocity, maybe even for the low fly ball rate. He's not getting, he's not timing stuff up right. He's definitely not pulling the ball, not that he did that a ton before. But regardless, it's been a rough go around for him so far. William Contreras is getting a slightly alarming.
Yeah, William Contreras.
Alarming. Slightly
It loops. I have to get used
Yeah.
to that. Have to catch that, new iOS. But yeah, so my slightly alarming, much different player, crazy different archetype, different position, different team. I'm talking about Wilson Contreras
Nice. I was hoping we did this.
of the
I knew
St. Louis.
there was a chance of it. I really wanted to believe it, but
It's
that's awesome.
it's pretty sick.
Yeah.
Talking about Wilson Contreras of the St. Louis Cardinals. And yeah, as I was doing prep for this, he was still playing in the bludgeoning of the Cardinals by the Red Sox. So I'll just justify by saying some of these stats as of the time of the time I wrote that dot point. As of 9:56 p.m. on April 6th, he is hitting 114 with a 356 OPS. And out of 189 qualifiers, he has the sixth worst on base percentage and fifth worst OPS. He also has a 41% strikeout rate, which ranks fifth highest out of those 189. Also, out of 191 hitters to see 100 plus pitches heading into Sunday, he had the lowest expected WOBA and ninth lowest expected slugging. Also, out of 191 hitters, he had the seventh highest whiff rate. His whiff rate was around 42% heading into Sunday. And on 20 batted balls as of 9:56 p.m., he had zero barrels. And I don't know if he got a barrel in the plate appearance he had in the last plate appearance of the night, but as of 9:56 p.m. on April 6th, he had zero barrels. To go along with the fact that he was striking out 41% of the time. So, yeah, Wilson Contreras, who, especially now being a first baseman, derives pretty much all his value as from his hitting, has unfortunately been hitting very, very poorly so far this season. So yeah, Wilson Contreras, along with his brother, getting a
slightly alarming.
Yeah, I'm happy to report that he was pinch hit for before his last at bat.
oh, that's great.
So the 114 and the 355 do stand.
Yeah, it stands. Yeah, it's fully stands. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Good to make slightly alarming even more fun with talking about two brothers that have been
Yeah.
struggling. But
They're yeah, they got that like sibling telepathy.
true. But as Barry Bonds once said, you don't get slightly alarmed for nothing. You have to be a good player to be a
Yeah.
slightly alarming for the
And
most part.
emphasis on the slightly. It's 10 games into the season.
At most, unless you're a Dodger or a Cub. But
Yeah,
neither of them
but
are.
neither of them are. So
Yes. Um, Wilson Contreras was a Cub at one point, no longer. Um, but yeah, so now we will go from the lows to the highs where we're talking players or subjects that are outperforming expectations with our Sunday, April 6th, 2025 edition of How About That?
he's striking out less, walking more, and he's also making better contact.
Turning into a strikeout machine just out of nowhere.
He's been excellent all around this year.
And he is getting a
How about that?
Yeah, so for my how about that, I am sticking in the National League Central. I am sticking at the catcher position. And like you, with your slightly alarming, I am talking about a St. Louis Cardinal. And this is actually a victory lap for me. Granted, I guess it comes with a bit of a caveat because has only been, like I said, 10 games, but I think this one's justified. I'm talking about Ivan Herrera from the St. Louis Cardinals, who unfortunately did leave the game, the first of two games in the doubleheader today with an injury. I believe it was, hang on, what was the injury in question? Um, I don't know. Okay, Fangraphs hasn't posted, but I heard it was like some sort of inflammation, I believe. Hopefully nothing too bad. Because in 24 plate appearances this season, he is slashing 381, 458, 1048 for a 1506 OPS and a 308 weighted runs created plus, along with .7 FWAR. Among the 277 hitters with at least 20 plate appearances this season, Ivan Herrera ranks first in slugging, second in OPS, second in weighted runs created plus, and tied for fifth in FWAR despite ranking 228th, tied for 228th in plate appearances. Doesn't even qualify for the batting title, and yet he is a top 5 player in FWAR. Ivan Herrera has hit 4 home runs this season in 7 games, with 3 of them coming on Wednesday in that game against the Angels. All 3 of the home runs he hit in that game were to left field. They were pulled, and they all would have been gone in 30 out of 30 ballparks. All of them would have cleared in Baltimore, which is pretty cool. And it was one of just 7 games throughout the StatCast era in which a player hit 3 pulled batted balls that all traveled at least 395 feet. So 7th time that's happened, and it was Ivan Herrera that did it on Wednesday. Entering play on Sunday, his 105.6 mile per hour average exit velocity on fly balls and line drives was the highest among all qualifiers, and also since 2024 so far, he has increased his pull rate from 34.8% to 46.7%. He has decreased his whiff rate from 24.8% to 16.3%, and he has increased his average bat speed from 73.3% to 74%. So Ivan Herrera has been doing a lot, even better than he did last year. He was getting a lot of barrels last year, especially early in the season, but he's taken it to another level this year. He's been one of the best hitters in the league, despite not even qualifying for the batting title. Hoping for a speedy recovery and whatever his injury is, because it's been a lot of fun. Even if it was against my team this weekend, it was fun watching him hit a home run into the bullpen at Fenway on Friday.
Yeah, Ivan Herrera. Yeah, so on to my how about that, and I'm also taking a victory lap today.
Nice.
It's and yeah, we'll call it for both of us a brief victory lap. It's nothing to completely fawn over, but it is a good sign for what the next 150 some odd games you know will bring to us. But my victory lap, my how about that is Ben Rice of the New York Yankees. In 8 games and 30 plate appearances, he is hitting 320 with a 1073 OPS. And despite slugging a very impressive 640, he is underperforming his expected slugging by 175 points. Out of 191 hitters with 100 plus pitches seen heading into Sunday, he ranked 4th in expected slugging and 4th in expected WOBA. His average exit velocity at the moment is 97.5 miles per hour, and his barrel rate is 33%, which is insane. The average exit velocity is usually around 88, 89 miles per hour. Average barrel rate is around 8%. He's at 33%. Um, Out of 191 hitters, he had the 6th highest average exit velocity and 4th highest barrel rate. Along with that, he has pulled half of his fly. He's pulled half of his fly balls so far, and 17% of his total batted balls have been pulled fly balls. He's at 17%. The league average is at 7.7% heading into Sunday. So he's hitting the ball extremely hard. He's also pulling the ball, pulling fly balls, which is the most important. And yeah, it's garnered some good results, but it honestly should be better. But yeah, Ben Rice, looking very good. Quality contact looks amazing right now, and he is getting A. So yeah, that does it for players to highlight. Yeah, anything more before we want to wrap this up?
I think that is all for this pod.
Wonderful. Yeah, that shall do it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. Check out the guest playlists. We've had a variety of very esteemed guests on throughout the history of the show, whether that be Jeff Passan, Chris Rose, Mark Simon four separate times, Sarah Langs, Foolish Bailey, Mike Petriello, recently Anthony Castrovins, and also Matt Brash, the Mariners reliever, who's going to be coming back probably pretty soon. So if you want to get caught up with him and what his recovery was like, go check out that episode. Also follow us on social media. Follow me on Twitter at Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram at Daniel_Curran, and follow the show Instagram at Above Replacement Radio for all the show needs, and a reel or two may be coming out. So yeah, we will. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball once again. See you then.
This conversation is over.